underway in the ACL Challenge of 2022, and that race down towards turn 1 has Prevost leading from Valentini. Demonte's managed to get up into 3rd position, and there's plenty of side-by-side in the background. It still continues, but at the front it is a nice clean start from Thibaut Prevost. Valentini though right in the mix, and this is it. Where do we get those overtaking opportunities? It's so tricky to pass around here.
Getting a podium finish certainly is no mean feat, so they're going to be fighting for it, you know, tooth and nail.
Yeah, and courtesy of that drive-through penalty from Valentini, this has become the battle for the podium. It wasn't originally, it was just for 4th, at which point, you know, like I say, 4th or 5th, they're both top 5 in my book. I'll take either, thanks. But now it's for a podium. Yeah, that's something a bit different. You want to kick off not only to get a podium in the series, that's great, but also it's the first round of the series. To get a podium in that, to already start getting some decent points onto the board. When it comes to the esports competition that we've got online in this side of the ACL Challenge, we're only here for 4 races. It's 2 races tonight, and then in a couple of weeks we've got 2 more races, and that's it when it comes to the esports online racing here. It's not long. You can't afford to just lose a whole heap of points.
It's done to full effect there. But yeah, you really just have to get this season off to a good start, and they will carry that forward for the final 3 races as well.
Way too deep into T1. Oh no, for Jeff Jans. That is such a shame to have been spun out a little bit too deep there. It's a full reverse grid. If this was to do with, as there's the switch back underneath, that was lovely from Tom McKell to get to the inside of Theo. That was absolutely superb. Well, Thibaut Prevost on the penultimate lap of the race. I think you're absolutely right, because Luca Becker's last lap was a 45.9. It was half a second slower than Ludo De Monte. I think that you're absolutely right. It's just pushed maybe a little bit too hard in closing in, and has maybe overdriven it right now. Prevost onto the final lap of the race has just been completely dominant. A little bit of flashing lights to try and get this back marker out of the way. He doesn't move.
Well, that is certainly suboptimal, but yeah, he's got the gap behind, so he can afford to sit back. He doesn't need to do any risk taking, and he does eventually move out of the way. But that is the thing, when you're leading the race, you do get really, really nervous coming up onto the back markers.
Yes, indeed. That would be Romain Chiren, who's just got out of the way there, again in that Mercedes, which is obviously not helping, but the grey, sort of like gunmetal grey with yellow and pink highlights. But this driver has been in so much control in this race. Had a little bit of trouble at the start, but either way has dominated the entire 20 minutes in the opening race here in the ACL Challenge at Valkenburg. He comes across the line, and Thibaut Prevost wins the opening race of the season. Ludo De Monte is going to hang on the 2nd position behind, and Luca Becker rounds out the podium. Absolutely super stuff. Luca Becker had to work for that one. The lights are on, and we are getting ready to get underway once again here at Valkenburg as we race our way down to turn 1. I think it's a much better start from Pereira on the outside of that front row, and he's going to take the lead on that run down to the first corner. All a lot of side-by-side, of course, naturally exactly what you expect. Look at the background though, because our race winner last time, Thibaut Prevost, was a little bit patient. There is someone backwards, that is Cesar Almeida, who's gone for a spin down at turn 1, but Pereira with the big launch had the whole shot and has the race lead. This is exactly what we expect from a reverse grid race. It is just chaos. Who was that? It was just completely backwards in the middle of all of that. Alves gets spun around as well. I think it was Jeff Jans who was backwards coming through the 3rd corner. Absolute chaos in this race. Just I mean, it's a bit hard to dodge when you're on track when you've got all this going on. Oh my goodness, that was a big defence from Kouros, who then gets sent down the inside because Mercedes looks a little bit of a brush between the two as they all try and funnel their way through. And it was Mark Becker that was also trying to get in the Graham pink car. There's 3 wide running down into turn 1. That's exactly what we focus on here.
Prevost has got some fantastic pace, showed it in race 1, had an unfortunate start to race 2, but brushed it off, pushed forward, and is now trying to make some progress back towards the top 10. Very much so of a karting race where if you lose one place, you can certainly bet that you are going to lose a couple more, because everyone's just locked so close. Here's Kora's going to go the long way around as Zachariah, who gets swallowed up, goes underneath him again through 2, and the long way round of 3. So manages to stay in front, but that's the thing in karting races, which a lot of these drivers are going to have to get used to very quickly, is that everyone's so close, nose to tail. You lose one place, everyone behind you is going to try and bully their way through, force their way through that gap that's going to be pried open by someone going for a move. and then you lose one place, you're going to lose at least 2, 3, maybe even 4 in some extreme cases.
Valentini, who's just about to start the final lap of this race. And the timer ticks down. There will be enough time for one more lap, which I am all for when they're racing like this for third place, because it's absolutely super stuff. Luca Becker's not able to make a move just yet. Into that final braking zone they go, and this is them, what would essentially be the white flag, the final lap of the race about to begin. This is going to be, it's got to be a pretty bold move, surely.
Yeah, gloves off to the end. Just push for this final lap. Absolutely go for it. But the Cruz Peixoto just has to keep it clean, keep it tidy, and bring it home for P3. Done a fantastic job. Hasn't been under any pressure. But now this final lap will surely test his absolute skill. As you can see, Luca Becker looking to the inside of De Monte.
Well, final corner. Valentini's just coming through it now. And Tom Valentini is going to win. Top pre-qualifying coming into this, and didn't look so strong in that first race, courtesy of a couple of issues and a drive-through to deal with. But this race is all about Valentini, completely dominant. And there is Pereira across the line to take second, and a super haul of points. But behind this is that tight fight for third, and Peixoto is going to grab it just at the line. Ludo De Monte is going to give it a bit of a drag race up there. It's separated by hundredths of a second.
What does it mean to be a game changer?
It's about proving everyone wrong.
Is it about flipping the script? It's never taking no for an answer.
It's about standing up, speaking out, and never stopping until the job is done.
Erschlasser mat de Systemer vu Baving Security Solutions, clever online immer a vun iwwerall steieren. Baving Security Solutions, guckt op baving.delu.
Well, are you ready? I think the answer is yes. We are. Season 2 of the ACL Challenge, round 2, is about to get underway here at Sonoma Raceway. We head from Falkenberg all the way over to the United States and to California and to one of the most historic circuits in the United States. Sonoma, it's been known as Infineon. It's had many names over its years here at Sears Point, but Sonoma Raceway is its current name, and it is a properly open racetrack. So many different layouts around here. We're running the sprint circuit, so we'll be skipping up that central part through the carousel, running down through the chute up towards 7. So many big overtaking opportunities, which we'll be talking you through across 2 races this evening. And remember, that second race is a full reverse grid. It was very exciting back in Falkenberg a couple of weeks ago. But as we get ready for this, myself, Lewis McGlade, Zach Sweeney in the commentary booth, we are ready for a full-on evening of fisticuffs as everyone's trying to get themselves into the top 32 in the championship so they can head their way into the semi-final stage of this competition.
Yeah, it should be a fantastic race. Of course, 2 weeks ago at Falkenberg, we saw some great action across these guys. And, well, it's going to be gloves off today because this is the decider. They've got to make sure they get those points on the board. And, well, we saw how competitive and just how much the pressure can really build up and bring up some desperation in some of these drivers. So they really do want this prize.
You can see there in the bottom right where it says the next round, it'll be an on-site event at the Mondercange karting circuit on the July 9th, 10th weekend. 32 of the qualifiers from this will be invited to take part on RaceRoom simulators on site at the venue, and then the week later the finalists will move over from there and they'll actually be taking on the karts around the circuit in the following week. And I've said this before, we said this in the previous round, that we love this kind of idea that we know that sim racing and motorsport are linked, are seriously linked, and it's kind of one of those things that is growing in that linkage over the next couple of years. And to have a championship where you do have both linked, where to win the competition you have to do both sides of sim racing and motorsport, it's so much fun.
Absolutely, it's also a really good opportunity for these drivers to prove themselves, of course, as well. It's it is one thing to do it in the sim, to be able to then prove it and do it in the real world as well. Because while they're not the vastly different things, you're still in a sense on the sim, turning the wheel, pressing the pedals, etc., etc. You then have to do it in the real world. When you're under pressure as well. It's not just like they're going for a day out karting with their mates. It's going to be under pressure. They've got something to work for and win. And again, that should, in theory, separate the good from the great in this competition.
We can see here they're in practice at the moment. 3 minutes left of this before we'll head into the all-important qualifying session. Just 10 minutes in that before 2 20-minute races. Now, this is one full reverse grid. If the previous round was anything to go by, we expect the second race to potentially see a couple of incidents, a couple of even disqualifications by exceeding incident points. We will speak about how that works a bit later on, but basically by exceeding track limits, by making too much car contact, the game will automatically disqualify you if you're being a bit too naughty. I'd suspect in that next race, in the second race, to maybe see a little bit of that. But the thing is, maybe less so than at Falkenberg. Falkenberg is quite a difficult circuit to overtake. It's very, very short. Whilst this circuit is also short, there are a lot more overtaking opportunities for a GT4 around here. Up the hill in towards turn first couple of corners, you've got coming down into turn 4, and then the next corner after at turn 7. Yes, we will get angry about track numbers, corner numbers a little bit later on. Coming down to the final heaven, there's a lot of great places to make a move, so I actually kind of think they might be a little bit more reserved this evening.
Potentially so, because they do know they have got the opportunities to do it. At Falkenberg, it was take what you can get because you might not get another chance. Whereas here, again, they have the opportunity, they have the time, they have again, they can set themselves up a little bit better. It's not a case of do or die. It's not a case of I need to take that, otherwise I'm not going to get through. Again, they can just observe their opponent, sit behind, see where they're quicker, and then, of course, up move. And it's also not the end of the world if they do fail a move as well, because they can come straight back at them, go for a counter attack somewhere else. So, again, should be just as spicy, if not even more so than Falkenberg. And as well, the edge of the tracks could be quite difficult as well. We just saw with Leia going into the gravel trap. Yeah, need to watch out for them as they go around.
Well, whilst we're here then in practice, I think it's a good time to speak of the championship of the standings, of those that will be moving through it. The lead of the standings is Ludo De Monte with Luca Becker and Mark Becker in second and third. I do not believe that Ludo De Monte is here. I do see that Luca Becker and Mark Becker are, but I'm not sure about Ludo De Monte. Now, in some championships where we kind of think maybe that's a bad thing, maybe that's going to be a massive negative. For some that are inside the top sort of 15 in the standings, I'd still say that they're in a very positive position to move through into the semi-finals, just purely based on the fact of having a decent points haul from the first round. You don't need to win both rounds. It's such a short thing. Only 4 races to decide who our finalists are going to be.
You know, each race takes up a massive percentage of the points. So, of course, they still have to arrive. They still have to do their best job today. But that points buffer will give them just a good cushion, especially those towards the front, as we see, Forte not getting his day off to the best of the starts. And that's what practice is for, I suppose. But, yeah, again, the race 1 and 2 at Valkenburg will really give them that good cushion. But, again, still, you can't get complacent. As comfortable as you might think you may be, you still have to deliver. You still have to get at least some points because, well, motorsport will throw you some surprises.
Certainly will. Final couple of laps being ended here in the practice session before we move over into that qualifying. Just 10 minutes now. Whilst I said it's quite an easy track to go racing on, you still need to qualify well. With it being quite short, a little bit longer, I mean, it's about 20 seconds longer than Valkenburg, you don't get too many opportunities. It is a 10-minute session. We remind you every time we go racing here in RaceRoom that once that 10-minute session is over, the session is over. And so you need to make the lap stick. We'll catch up with Zach Sweeney in a couple of moments, I am sure, because he's a driver that's got some experience when it comes to forcing a qualifying around here. It's obviously not around this circuit, but just generally on RaceRoom. It's not easy to deal with the pressure of being in the esports environment. We're able to take a look. I think we'll ride on board with Mark Becker as well, who actually did very well in the previous round with a few decent points as well. So he's in the top 3 in the championship. We'll stay on board because I actually want to see a proper full-on push lap on board here with a couple of drivers. See them line themselves up, getting themselves ready for their very first push laps of the session. And like I say, it's not an easy circuit to really throw it around. A lot of undulation around here. It certainly is very up and down, but we do love a good roller coaster.
Indeed so, and of course it should throw a nice spanner into the works in terms of undulation. Of course, these GT4s aren't going to be the most sensitive to undulation. More so, that'll be the case in much higher downforce cars. But yeah, no, absolutely, it should be interesting, and it just makes it a lot more fun. Of course, we've got really flat circuits, you know, the likes of, I guess, as much as I love it, Silverstone and places like that, where it's flat and not a lot of characters. So just for the fun aspect of driving a circuit, it should make this very interesting. But yeah, just overall, Sonoma seems to be a great venue.
Let's ride on board then around the circuit, on board with Mark Becker. Obviously, a little bit of lap traffic coming out of the pit lane there on the left-hand side of the shot, up the hill, through 1 and then into turn 2, gets a little bit understeer as you head over the crest, drops down a little bit on the right hand side, but you need to use all of that grass and gravel really out there. It's very, very dusty. Up through 3 and through 3A, down the hill, turn forward, go right there, so we don't take that one. That's on the Grand Prix loop. We head through 4A, and the next corner, of course it is, you know it, it's 7. Why not? That's 7 there. This is 7A. Apparently 7's a corner, but we won't get too angry about that. Out of turn 7, down into the sweepers. 8 and 8A. Obviously a lot more turns in here, but still 8 and 8A. It's America, corner numbers, very inconsistent, but it is a full commitment sweeper. Up and over the crest here, going through turn 9 into turn 10. High speed commitment here. You've got to hold your breath as you absolutely lob it over the curb. Not a great lap from Mark Becker, and he's instantly going to pull out of that one. The next corner would be the hairpin at turn 11. They come out of that and then through 12 to finish off the lap. But this lap already sorted for Mark Becker. I think he might have got a track limit excursion on the exit of 8A as you start getting ready for turn 9.
Yeah, and of course we were talking just a moment ago before my mic decided it didn't want to cooperate with how important qualifying can be. As you were saying, 10 minutes, that's it. Check your flags out. You can't complete your lap. Tough luck. And for Mark Becker, he needs to hurry up and get that banker time in, because he doesn't want to chance it a little bit later on and put all or nothing on that final lap. Because yes, naturally you will improve as the session goes on, but you know there's a good chance that on that final lap where you're trying to extract the most from the car, that you will mess up. And to have that banker time, it's better to start have a decent lap or just a slightly below average lap and start P11 or 12 than to not get one in at all, relying on that final push lap and be right towards the back, especially in the deciding round.
Well, Valentini went into the previous round. He's just gone up onto provisional pole here. Went into the previous round at Valkenburg, looking very strong, top in the pre-qualifier, and was looking pretty good. ended up qualifying in third, and then had quite a dramatic first race, a couple of issues through it. Ended up finishing down the order, got the full reverse grid, and then won the second race of the evening, on pole at the moment by 5 thousandths of a second with a 15.859, incredibly tight at the top there. The time, that is a very good lap time, by the way. It's not. I don't think it's going to stand when it comes to provisional pole. It was a 15.507 that Daniel Laya had set in the pre-qualifying. I'd suspect they need to find another 10th or 2, but still looking very strong from Valentini at the start of the session.
Absolutely, and of course, you know, it's one thing to do it in a time trial where you've got infinite laps back to back to back to back, just doing it all you want. You know, they have, I think, 2 weeks or just over a week to qualify for this event in that time trial session, and you can go however long you want. Make a mistake, it's fine, just reset. Now it's, you know, of course, slightly different track conditions. You've only got 10 minutes, and the pressure's on as well. So to be able to pull a lap that's, you know, within the same second of the time trial times in optimal conditions, and of course for both the track and the driver, still pretty impressive. But yeah, it still potentially might not be good enough, especially considering how close it is with only half a tenth covering the top 3. They have got a bit of a cushion back, as we see. Well, Thibaut Prevost going quickest by about 700ths of a second. So yeah, again, just goes to show there's always more time in it. You cannot be complacent with that cushion.
Yeah, Thibaut Prevost obviously set the original pole position back in Falkenberg before cruising to victory just ahead of De Monte. I'd say, you know, maybe he doesn't really need to put in a great lap time, but obviously you want to win a race when you can win a race. Prevost not leading the championship despite winning that first race, had a dramatic second race. It's fourth in the standings, 1 position ahead of Tom Valentini, who we're presently looking at the moment, 7 100ths behind. It was 400ths of a second separating the top 3 back in Falkenberg, and I could actually see, despite it being a longer lap around here, I could see the session times being the same sort of distance. We'll see Valentini depart turn 7 and into the sweepers, where you do really abuse the curve, especially in a GT4, kind of attacking it almost as if you're in a touring car. You really do lob it over the top, especially coming through 8 there as you're cresting the hill.
Absolutely, and it is quite forgiving. You can get away with it, especially in cars like these, so it should be okay for them to do so. As well, my dog just started to come in and say hello, as I'm sure you've heard. But yeah, either way, you've just got to be committed over those curbs, limit the distance, and of course, yes, while you might be able to scrape off just a little bit of speed in doing so, that shorter distance and that compromise should be okay. And it's not like, you know, many other curbs which will spit you out, as Valentini just misses out. In fact, no, he doesn't. He goes quicker, so it should be, I think, it's going to be swapping the baton between Valentini and Prevost.
But there is one driver to keep an eye on in all of this, and that's this driver, Neno Loic, who's coming through the final sector now, through the final corner at 12. Did pick up a little bit of slipstream, and straight across the line, boom, up onto pole position with a 15.697. There were 3 drivers, I believe, that were in the 15.5s in pre-qualifying. Might have been 4, but it was actually just 3 drivers. It was Laya, it was Valentini, and it was Loic. They were all on those 15.5, so they all have a bit more time left to find in this session with 3 minutes left to go. They're approaching their final couple of laps, which means the pressure's really on. It's why we always say before with these sessions, Zach, and you know this best of all, obviously having done esports and whatnot, that sometimes, you know, when you're in a session like this, it pays to have a decent banker lap set in the first half of the session.
I was alluding to, as I was saying a little bit earlier on, with just having that comfortability zone. Yes, I was saying don't get complacent with comfortability, but you need it. It helps to alleviate the pressure going into that final lap. Knowing you've got a decent time on the board, it's like, okay, well, I can give it a little bit more on this lap, because if you don't and you go into that final lap, instead of everyone else around you being able to go for it, try and hit every apex, absolutely send it in the brakes, on the power coming out, just chuck the car in, you have to be a little bit more conservative, because if you mess that lap up, you are going to be starting dead last, or certainly towards the back of the grid with the other people that have messed up their lap as well. So again, that isn't particularly good, especially with the massive grid that we've got. You know, qualifying is going to be quite important. Doesn't matter how good Sonoma is at overtaking, still a lot of cars to get through, which isn't ideal.
Yeah, indeed. Loic and Valentini will start on the front row at the moment as we head through turn 2. Didn't look super fast from Neno Loic. Whether he's going to be fully pushing over the lap, we'll have to wait and see. Mark Becker doing a decent job in the first sector, improving a bit on his own time, but not really improving anywhere to get close to pole. There is Mark Becker, losing an awful lot of time in that second sector, so a solid never mind on that. I think we've really got 4 battling out for the pole position here. Neno Loic, Valentini, Prevost and Laya. Now, Valentini Valentini, I believe, has just returned to pit lane. Laya, I think, has also just returned to pit lane. So as much as I said it was 4, I think we can start counting a couple of these out.
With only 1 minute and 16 seconds left. Oh, is Mark Becker going to get another lap? I don't think so. He's going to finish this one, and yeah, that's going to be his qualifying session over. Of course, was able to get himself P4 in race 1 at Valkenburg, so he certainly has got the pace and certainly got some good points up there, knows how to race. So P6 isn't the end of the world, but yeah, certainly right in saying that we might be able to count a couple of people out, and that is a shame because of how close it is. You know, if you have to put it into the pit lane, if you have to abort your lap, you know, you could certainly lose out at least a couple of paces.
Carmen Forte at the moment in a lovely Ferrari on the left-hand side of that graphic, obviously being the logo from in-game, so don't worry about that. Obviously, everyone on this grid, every single driver is in the same car. It is the Mercedes GT4. Everyone is in the same ballpark. They're all running the same stuff, and it's what makes it fair. It's what makes the competition super, super tight. But as we head towards the end of the sessions, there is still 30 seconds, so you could still see a couple of times coming in. But when it comes to the top competitors in this, Zach, Loic has set the time that no one else could really match. Only 4 drivers managed to get into the 15s around here. Very, very tight between them.
Yeah, absolutely, and it should set us up for a fantastic 20 minutes of racing here for race 1. And of course, it was very, very close. All it took was, you know, just hitting the apex, getting a slightly better exit for Valentini behind to get that extra half a tenth of a second. Literally isn't anything at all to any normal person, but yeah, it was very, very close. High stakes between the two, and well, should bring us some really good racing. But again, under pressure in these conditions, you know, 10 minutes on the clock, limited amount of laps, and the pressure that comes with having to qualify. Well, Loic managed to put the time on the board and, well, got himself a well-deserved pole position.
Yes, indeed. Well, before we get into the first race, we'll just step aside, at least for a couple of seconds.
RaceRoom, Ihre Partner für professionelle Racing-Simulatoren. Für zu kaufen oder für zu lohnen. Kommt sie einfach testen. Bei RaceRoom vom 1. April und zum Mondercange auf der ACL Kartingspiste.
Yes, indeed. And we are ready to go racing. Can't wait to see them, by the way, racing on those simulators in a couple of weeks' time. But for now, they have to do the work on circuit around here. And Zach, could be quite dicey out there.
Absolutely. We were saying a little bit earlier on during practice on the early stages of qualifying how well Sonoba can lend itself to some overtake. And of course, with how close it was in qualifying, those guys know they've got the pace to win this race, and they're going to absolutely go at it. Only one of them can win it, and they're all going to think it's them, and they're going to give absolutely everything to make sure it is them. So we'll find out in just a few moments.
Yes, indeed. And for drivers like Loic, who weren't there in the first round of the season, need to start off by scoring some decent points in this one. We'll get ready to go racing for 20 minutes here at Sonoma. Lewis McGlade, Zach Sweeney in the commentary booth, but there is one driver missing. Loic is not on the grid. That's the same kind of issue that we saw from Valentini in the first round of the season. As we go racing here at Sonoma, decent start there from Laya from the third row of the grid, as they're just trying to push their way up the hill through T1 and into T2. Racing up there, Prevost going to lead from Valentini, jumping him on the race start, getting around the outside one straight off towards the barrier. I think it might be Peters, who's just been sent straight off at the very first corner of racing, but Prevost will lead from Valentini and from Luke Becker.
Yeah, indeed. So a fantastic start from Prevost there, just to catapult himself up into P1. Luca Becker also making up some good progress and just staying at the moment in P3, which again is a fantastic result. Still 19 minutes of racing, and Valentini will not like that move from Prevost at all. He'll want to get payback. He'll want to get himself back in front as soon as possible. But yeah, still a pretty decent train for the race lead, actually. Everyone keeping themselves in tow in that slipstream range. And of course, with as battles start to form, especially between the high stakes for that race lead and that podium, people should bring themselves back in check as well.
I do believe that Neno Loic has actually rejoined the race circuit, would have had to start from the pit lane. Do not know what the issue was there, but for Loic in a 20-minute race, whilst this is a very raceable circuit, for Loic to start, what was originally slated to start from pole position, to have to start from the pit lane, that is very, very rough indeed. First one ticked off though, and it is going to be Prevost leading once again. Thibaut Prevost, fourth in the championship, race winner back in Valkenburg, is heading the charge from Valentini, the other race winner from Valkenburg, from Luca Becker, from Laya. The top of the pre-qualifier went his way and looking very fast around the circuit, dragging Carmen Forte, who moved up inside the top 5.
Absolutely, a clean start as well for the majority of the grid. Shame for Loic though, and he certainly has got their work cut out for him as they have to battle their way through the grid. And as we were saying, got themselves pole position, put themselves in the perfect opportunity. Unfortunately, for one reason or another, had to start from the pit lane, which is certainly less than ideal. But of course, that full reverse grid race coming up after this one, so not all over. It could be worse, of course, with their pace. Even if they do get themselves up in this race, score a couple of extra points, then it flips on its head. They can then work themselves back towards the front, while the likes of Prevost and Valentino are still having to battle their way through during race 2. That's when Loic can then get their own back.
Yeah, it's not like the circuit's not like some other ones in America, like the likes of Road America or Watkins Glen, where you really require the slipstream to do well in a race. Where essentially, if you don't have the pace, you can actually kind of keep up courtesy of the slipstream. This is a proper driver circuit. Why a lot of drivers in real life absolutely love racing around here, because you wrestle the car through that middle sector. It is insanely difficult to get the most out of it. But it means that for Neno Loic, at the moment down in 26th position, I would definitely, no joke, I'd be unsurprised to see that car forcing its way up towards the top 15, maybe even the top 10 late on in the race. I know that sounds crazy at the moment, but Loic is one of the drivers that can get in the 15s, is one of the drivers that can get down onto those kind of times, and might feel a bit strong later on in the race.
Absolutely, one of only 4 to do so during the qualifying session, the quickest of them to get himself onto pole position. We're going to see a move, not quite from the likes of Premier on Almeida, but yeah, no, Loic absolutely has got the pace to carve their way through. And of course, yes, it's only a 20-minute race, only 16 minutes left of it now. They have the pace. They can afford to be slightly patient. They've got time, 20 minutes to carve their way through, plenty of overtaking opportunities. And while it is a big grid, that just means everyone's going to be nicely bunched up, which just means Loic can tick them off one by one, carve their way through. Every little helps, and of course all it does is get some bonus during race 1, just to then be able to catapult their way towards the front in race 2. So it's certainly not all over for Loic, and of course only needs enough points to get themselves into the top 32. Still certainly is on.
Well, whilst Luca Becker has got himself inside the top 10, really the question is for Daniel Lyer how long it will take for him to get past at the moment. You've kind of got to maybe make a bit of a bold dive, not really close enough coming off the final hairpin at T11, going through 12. Around the section, need to be closer. Becker doesn't quite have the speed of Lyer. We see that in the pre-qualifier, we see that in the qualification session. And Lyer's going to be losing out an awful lot of the moments. The top 2 have pulled away by 2 seconds.
Absolutely flying, aren't they, of Prevost and Valentini, just keeping each other in check. So certainly will be a race between those two, potentially working together. Of course, they'll know as drivers it's much better to fight one other driver than 3, and towards the latter stages of this race they'll certainly be thanking themselves for doing that, because when they do start fighting, they do not want the likes of Luca Becker and Leia just behind to fight them for it. So at the moment, working together, keeping it buddy for the time being. Or well, maybe they're not, maybe Valentini can't quite get close enough to Prevost, but either way they both have the pace to pull away. And yeah, Luca Becker, I think his best bet probably is just to try and consolidate that 3rd place.
This chorus with Peugeot directly behind. Obviously, De Cruz Peugeot ended up on the podium the previous round of the season. Almeida and Bremeier also quite close with Ra as well. Very tight heading down into the hairpin. As much as turn 12 is the final corner of the circuit, T11, the hairpin, really is the final corner. This is a flat out, very, very easy kink. You can get side by side through there. It's not really too major. Same with turn 1 here as well. They're kind of nothing corners. They're only really numbered because you do actually have to turn the wheel ever so slightly. They're not really racy ones. Here's a move though, further up the order. Carmen Ford has dropped down behind Mark Becker, who's gone around the outside. This is coming up through 3 and 3A. A lot of curb being used from Mark Becker. Gets now inside the top 5.
Indeed, so fantastic move there from Mark Becker. Just got to be committed, and of course, with the gravel champs and things surrounding the circuit, it can be quite scary to go around the outside, knowing that your race is in the hands of the driver you're trying to overtake. But great mutual respect between the two, of course, Zachariah and Mertz in just in pursuit as well. So yeah, I think Mark Becker wanted to get through before those two chase through, and it is nice just to have that buffer. Even if Zachariah and Mertz have got the pace over Becker, he's now got that cushion of forte.
Okay, can I ask a question here? From a tactical point of view, knowing the fact that Loic's got a lot of pace right now, I would see him up in 23rd position. Sure, it's a decent amount of progress. I would have expected a little bit more, to be honest, considering the pace in pre-qualifying and in the qualifying session and in practice and whatnot. Knowing that potentially a race win will almost certainly guarantee your pathway, into the going into the semi-finals. Do you kind of think that Neno Loic might actually be backing off ever so slightly here to kind of not try and drag the most out of it for a full reverse grid next race, to start as high as possible, so it's only be 6 or 7 people to overtake rather than potentially 15?
Yeah, absolutely. He'll know that, and he'll know that he doesn't particularly need to do much to solidify. And of course, he knows he's got the pace to do so. Why stretch yourself out other than to have a bit of fun in race 1? But it just makes your life so much more difficult in race 2. In race 1 you're going to pick up a few points, then in race 2 you're going to be it's going to be even more difficult to pick up the substantial amount of points that you get for a race win. So car around as well. Who is that? I think that might be a lap car, or is that Mertz or Bra going around? I think potentially just stopped in the middle. It is Mertz, just stopped in the middle of the track. I think doing exactly the right thing there, not moving and staying predictable.
Yeah, it's kind of the major things why we say, if you're going to go for a big slide or whatever, hold your brake. The reason being is that when you hold your brake, you essentially lock up and you go in a straight line, remain predictable. If you've been spun around, stay where you are until it's clear. Here's Neno Loic, who's now in 20th position, trying to get past Huberty at the moment. Big moment for Huberty going into the sweepers, and that's right in front of everyone. There's a bit of side-by-side in the background, as well as Cryer also getting side-by-side with Calvez. Cryer getting the advantage in that swap to 21st position. All that talk that I was having about Neno Loic, by the way, about maybe holding back, straight inside the top 20, 19th position, and is now latched onto the rear end of the train. Shiren directly ahead, Jeff Jans, Braz, Alves, they're all in one lovely train, ready for him to pick off one by one by one.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what he's going to want. I had a little look towards turn 1, but of course, as you say, it's one of those really nothing corners. Can't exactly get away with just sending one to the inside. Just got to bide their time, wait for a good opportune moment, late on the brakes or something of the sort, because he'll know that Shuren will have to, maybe when they catch up onto the likes of Jan and Braz just in front, he'll have to brake slightly earlier. That could give Loic the opportunity just to sneak one to the inside. Then once he's there, we can sort of claim the corner and pick his way through. He's got the pace. Is he going to look in towards this right-hander? Not quite going to be able to. And of course, with the cars in front battling, there's Braz and Jans just in front, potentially going side by side, could allow Loic to get the moves done. He's going to go for his first one on Shuren, and we were completely wrong about that. He certainly wants to get his way up, and he's certainly enjoying himself.
Yeah, down the inside, going into 7A and into the sweepers now, and Loic's charging. Like I say, maybe it was a little bit kind of waiting for the race to come to him. Exactly what is going on right now. Jans was trying to get past Braz. Oh my goodness me! Ho, ho, ho. Wow, that was opportunistic from Neno Loic, coming down into T10. Super stuff, but he might get repassed here if he's not careful by Jeff Jans, down into the final corner, into the hairpin at T11. But that was opportunistic if ever I've seen it. And whilst that's happened, Braz has won wide, and Loic's come through. Couple of positions there in a couple of corners, and boom, he's up in a 16.
Beautiful stuff from Loic, using his experience and his pace very wisely there just to pick his way through. You can see Braz and Jans going side by side through turn 1, and off they go, both of them, the pair. And that's going to allow Shuren to pick the pair of them off as everyone gets bumped up a place. But yeah, Loic is doing a fantastic job, just again picking his way through, playing the patient game. He's got 10 minutes left of this race, not even halfway through. He will be in about a few seconds time, but not even halfway through yet. He's got the time. He's already made up half the grid, and he's not actually too far off the likes of Alves. Bit of a gap to Pereira in P14, but even P15, just to pick off that many cars, and of course sets himself up for race 2, because he just has to pick off the same people once again, and he knows he can do it. So yeah, Loic, pretty bad start to the day. It wasn't a bad start, it was pole position, but of course bad start to race 1, but he's certainly making amends for it now.
Halfway through the race, and obviously with that being 8 laps, expecting them to be 16 laps over the race. Proposed leading from Valentini from Laya after clearing Luca Becker. Hasn't really had the pace to completely close in on the top 3. He was a little bit faster than Valentini on the previous lap, did a 15.9. Valentini did a 16.0, but your race leader Proposed did a 15.8. Loic, on the other hand, by the way, did a 17.8, but obviously he's trying to pass everyone. He can do 15s. Everyone ahead of him is doing 17s and 18s. That shows that he can potentially run 2 to 3 seconds faster than most of the drivers ahead. That is why a top 10 isn't crazy out of the ballparks. 10 seconds down the road. If you're racing a couple of seconds a lap faster, around a 1 minute lap in 9 minutes left to go, you've got yourselves a good 8 laps to close yourselves in. Well, that would be 16 seconds if all things were perfect.
Absolutely, he's certainly got the pace to do it. And of course, we did see a fairly sizable gap in qualifying. It was very close at the front, then of course it did sort of dissipate itself out as you went towards the midfield and towards the rear end. So yeah, Loic is certainly in a different world compared to those around him. No discredit to those around him, it's just that Loic and the top four are absolutely flying out in front. Bit of a squirmy moment there from Fortes as Zachariah potentially could close the gap as they go through turn 12 to start the next lap. And well, Fortes probably feeling the pressure, of course, in P6, maybe just overdriving the car a little bit. I know from experience, and of course a lot of these drivers will know that overdriving the car can quickly turn into a negative feedback loop where the car just ends up having no grip at all.
Yeah, you overheat your rear tyres and stuff, and then it gets worse, it gets worse, it gets worse. It is quite an easy car-track combo to overdo, like I said before, with the undulation and stuff, and some of the curves which you really do attack around here. And a GT4 is one that I've said before, everyone's like, yeah, GT4 is much easier to drive than a GT3, which I actually kind of think is a little bit of rubbish. A GT3, you got, I mean, I know you've got assists in both, but GT3s, you've got a whole heap of assists to fall back on. Whilst you have less power in the GT4s, you've got less downforce. It's still a rear-wheel drive. You've got a lot less downforce, a lot less grip, and sometimes it can be quite easy to kick the rear end out.
Absolutely, it's still a difficult car to drive by any means. It's just because it's got a 4 instead of a 3 and slightly slower, it doesn't mean it's at all difficult to drive. And yeah, it is still a very difficult discipline. And you can see Ronnie Christian and a lot of drivers as well falling victim to that difficulty. Is you know, all it takes is one tiny mistake and they can have the largest of consequences.
Ronnie Christian trying to attack for 12th position, right on the rear end of Gra of Almeida as well. A couple of seconds down the road is Bremeier, who you can see just coming through the foreground, a shot there, well out of attack. Pereira's not too far behind. Pereira in all of this isn't, I was going to say he's lapping quicker than that, but he's done an 18.5, did a 17.7 on that, did actually close in a second, so there we go, he was actually closing in, is Pereira. But Loic behind that, watch him there, just coming through the background of shot, was 2 seconds faster than this group on the last lap. He is charging, desperately wants not just 15th place, not just the top 15, he wants more, he's hungry for more points after having to start this race in the pit lane.
Well, he's a racing driver, isn't he? He's going to want it, he's going to see it, and he knows he's got the pace to do it. So absolutely no reason for him to not absolutely gun for it. And that gap has come down so quickly. And yeah, it certainly isn't out of the question at all, because Pereira is close to Christian, who's close to Graz, who's close to Almeida, who's close to Brimer in front. So yeah, certainly has a fantastic opportunity. Of course, time is not on his side. Only 6 minutes left to do it. It's with 1 minute 16. Only a few laps, probably around about 4 or 5 laps if they're lucky. It depends when the timing with Prevost and Valentini when they cross the line, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But he's going to be hoping it times it well enough that he gets an extra lap because, well, he's going to need it.
I don't think they will get an extra lap. I think it'll be very tight, but I think it'll be 10 seconds to the good. That's my prediction right now. Well, we'll see how we fall at the end of the race. Valentini, by the way, has had a bit of an issue on the start of the lap. I don't know if you can kind of see the gap, but at the top of your timing tower, it's 2 seconds now between Valentini and Prevost. Valentini is actually dropping back into the clutches of Laya, who was half a second faster on the previous lap, but I think might actually be, courtesy of issues at the start of this lap, might be closer to about a second faster than Prevost over this one so far. Clearly a couple of issues right now for Valentini. It could be lap traffic. There we go. As we head our way through lap traffic, that could be playing its part. I hadn't really thought of that being the case. With there being so many laps, had this at Falkenberg as well, we do get quite a lot of laps. It does mean that we would tend to see a couple of back markers.
Absolutely, and it can swing your way on some occasions, can swing the other way on others. And again, it is just the luck of the draw between, you know, when you catch them and of course how much you have to slow down to adhere to them, how quickly they can move out of the way as well, because some drivers are going to be more aware than others. Some people are going to be more kind than others. They're going to move, just dart themselves out of the way. Others will be like, you can wait a little while. I'm going to wait for a straight when it's convenient for me. Of course, they do have a limited amount of time in order to actually move out of the way, but they're going to do it at a time that's more convenient to them. So it is very much luck of the draw, but either way, it seems that even despite the lap traffic, Prevost certainly has had the measure of Valentini.
Goncalves, by the way, has received a disqualification. That'll be for, it's kind of a good time to really kind of speak about it. You can get a disqualification for basically running over track limits. There we go. And it was for, well, got a drive-through for speeding in the pit lane. Did Fabio Alves? Never mind, I thought it was Goncalves then, but I just read the final 5 letters, which is not a great idea. But yeah, you can get it for car contact. You get some instant points for car contact. You get some instant points for exceeding track limits. And that can all build up to you receiving a disqualification from the race, which is automated. It's all controlled in game. No stewards looking over those bits. And Well, you know, it's basically fair. If you make contact, you get this. If you cut the track, you get this.
Absolutely, it's clear cut, and everyone's in the same boat as well. It's not like it's someone's out to get you, someone's discriminating against you, saying, "Oh no, you went 0.01 millimeters outside the track limits." That's absolutely it for you. So no, it's the same for everyone, and you have to. You just got to keep it on the circuit. You got to keep it clean. And again, everyone, as I said, everyone's in the same boat. And unfortunately for Goncalves, again, reaching that limit, and it can be for the margins of things, but they very quickly add up.
I don't know if there'll be any practice, by the way, for pit lane, because Alves is going to have to come in to serve that drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So we're obviously probably quite aware of how to go to pit lane. Obviously, that'll be from repairing damage and stuff. But it's not an easy pit lane. You basically exit it. Where they go through the hairpin at turn 11, you go straight on, and you've got this little narrow bit around the walls. And the pit lane, the actual speed limit is quite late. It's why it's so easy to speed. And what do we always say, Zach? Do not speed in the pit lane when you're serving a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Don't want to repeat of that.
No, absolutely not. I'm sure you're. Well, I know full well that you're. You know about it firsthand, and it can be the breaking point for some drivers to be like, nah, absolutely not. I'm not doing this anymore, and just giving up. But you just if you're serving a penalty in the pit lane, you're losing time anyway. What's an extra couple of seconds just to ensure you don't have to go through again?
Valkyrie competition then. Thibaut Prevost coming through the final couple of corners now to cross the line. 2 minutes and 11 seconds left in the race, with was running around 1 minute 15. I think I might be right, actually, by the way. It's been about 10 seconds over. But we should be heading now onto the penultimate lap of the race. And so Prevost looking very, very comfortable at the moment to take a second victory in the ACL Challenge here in Season 2. Of course, one from pole position back in the first round of the season, and looking to take victory once again.
Absolutely, he is the man on form, and doing a great job of showcasing it as he goes through, and just that consistency he's shown. It's one thing being quick, it's another thing being consistent. It's yet another thing to be able to deal with the pressure. Valentini himself is a race winner. He's had that pressure. He managed to maintain the race leads going through turn 1 and that first lap, and hasn't really looked back since. And that does go to, it's one of the perfect ingredients for a great racing driver.
Yes, going through the, like I say, just the level of control, the level of consistency. We know that this time is currency, right, in sim racing and motorsport. You need to kind of know when to use it and when to abuse it and when to lose it. And right now, Prevost is the master of that in this championship, but did struggle in the reverse grid race back in Valkenburg, so we'll see if there's going to be any more of that. Neno Loic, I think, has been greased up, is ready to go, by the way, for that reverse grid race, because right on the rear end of Kristen has had so many moves throughout this race.
He has indeed, and he's absolutely flying towards the back of that Mercedes in P14, and well, he can certainly eye up a move. He's got now one more lap. Going to look to the outside of the penultimate corner. That's going to be one to pull off if Christian gives him the space. Has to bite it back in though. Oh, bit of contact with Loic sent into the barrier there potentially. He was indeed. He's tumbled down, and that is just how quickly it can happen. That is, it can go from celebrations to heartbreak in just a matter of moments.
That's racing, unfortunately. Well, the final sector awaits for Thibaut Prevost, who's had to deal with some back markerage, some lapped traffic to halt his charge potentially, but he darted his way through it lovely. Valentini didn't do so, and after that it relinquished some of the pressure from behind. And for the second race in a row, when it comes to the opening races here in the ACL Challenge, round number 2, race number 1 for Valkyrie competition, Prevost departs the final corner here at T11, and it is victory once again for Thibaut Prevost. Valentini will follow him across the line, and the two of them will start from the very back of the grid for race number 2. They've got a lot of work to do, and it's work that Loic knows exactly how to do right now. Doesn't seem like Loic is going to have to do it for the second race, because he's going to start only 4 positions away from the race lead. He's going to be a very tricky man to beat.
Could be a blessing in disguise for Loic. Of course, we were saying as we see maybe a last lap move for P11 as Almeida's under pressure from Gras, as they potentially could run side by side through the absolutely not really a corner, but a corner of turn 12. Drag race to the line. This is fantastic between the two. Who's going to get it? It was very, very close. I think Gras just managed to nip himself up into P11. But yeah, it could be a blessing in disguise for Loic. We were saying a little bit earlier on about how how a race win is nearly a surefire enough points to actually get yourself qualified inside the top 32. And he got himself a decent way up. That means he had to do the same amount of hard work in race 2 to be able to get that race win. But now, given his pace and given his pace in clean air, we saw it in how quickly he caught up to the likes of Pereira and Christian just now. He certainly has the pace to pull away if you give him the space.
Well, after a race like that, considering the points margin, I do think Thibaut Prevost, with yet another victory, will head to the top of the point standings. Not that it matters too much. We're only really looking at the top 32 in the point scores to go through into the semi-finals, where they'll battle it out in a couple of weeks' time at the actual Mondercange karting circuit, where they'll be on the simulators there. But another great victory for Prevost. Valentini, Laya behind, Luca Becker ahead of Mark Becker. The two of them were inseparable back in Falkenberg, with Carmen Forte in 6th position. Zachariah, Kouros, De Cruz, Peugeot, who was on the podium in the second race back in Falkenberg, just ahead of Bremai. You can see the rest of them coming through there. A couple of drivers to really point out in this. Loic, of course, dropping back to 25th in the final moments of the session. Alves receiving the drive-through penalty and then getting a big penalty later on with a couple of DQs as well. Race 2 will be coming up in just a moment, and I'm sure it is going to be an absolute thriller.
RaceRoom, Ihre Partner für professionelle Racing-Simulatoren. Für zu kaufen oder für zu lohnen. Kommt sie einfach testen. Bei RaceRoom vom 1. April und zum Mondercange auf der ACL Kartingspiste.
Well, the second race just on the horizon, a full reverse grid. Lewis McGlade, Zach Sweeney in the commentary booth. And Zach, this was very drama-filled back in Falkenberg, and I'm expecting very much the same thing.
Yeah, no less is to be expected, especially with how it's lined up to be. Sonoma we've seen a lot better in terms of overtaking, with just as many cars and a lot of places to overtake. Of course, we've got the likes of Prevost towards the back, should be just as good.
Yes, indeed. Well, here we go. This is going to be a bit of a brave charge up towards turn 1. Goncalves, who got a DQ in the previous race, got involved in a lot of the drama back in the previous round at Falkenberg. Already a drive-through penalty for Emmanuel Braz after a false start. But Goncalves is going to lose a start down into T1. Welter straight around the outside up and towards turn 1. And Welter's going to lead their way through the first corner. What is the advantage that of course, Loic has had? Where is Loic? There's a big spin there as they all get spun out. That is Goncalves, a couple of other drivers in the mix. Oh my goodness. Where is Loic in all of this? He's not on my timesheet, so I think Loic might be out. So he's not been able to take to the race start for the second consecutive race. The driver who is potentially the favourite for all of this, he's out of it. There is Emmanuel Braz, who will be having to return to pit lane after a false start. That is just a crazy start to this race, Zach.
It's so frustrating for Loic. We're getting word that his game crashed, and that's just heartbreak. Of course, Welter now has some more clear track as well as Alves, so it could open the opportunity for another surprise race winner. But just absolute carnage once again in this reverse grid race. And well, we expected no less by any means, but we didn't expect it to be that much. And of course, with turn 1 being such a fast sweeper into the left with so many cars, it was bound to happen. But you'd think it'd be a little bit better if you just see even more cars just trying to concentrate their way through, 3 abreast in towards that penultimate corner.
Sorry, look who's in P10. Valentini is in P10. Oh my goodness me. What a start. Braz comes into the pit lane to serve that drive-through. We focus now on Valentini, who'll be trying to get around the outside of De Cruz Peugeot, who was on the podium back in Falkenberg. And Valentini's gone from the second last position on the grid and is marching forward, looking for a second victory, looking for his second victory in the ACL Challenge, because of course we did see that one from Prevost in the previous race. But what an absolutely sensational start from Valentini. If Loic was in this race, I'm pretty sure Loic would be the one to do the business. But now that one stepped aside, the advantage surely will swing for the likes of Valentini.
Of course, it was race 2 that he got that win last time out at Falkenberg, so he certainly knows how to do the reverse grid race as he looks to the inside of De Cruz Peugeot as they go through and up into P8. And again, doing it at the start is so crucial. He's made up those places impressively, very crucially, managed to carve his way through, keep himself out of trouble. And while it's still at the start, everyone in front of him is still really close together. So it's not like he's managed to get himself up into P8 after 5 minutes in, where everyone's sort of spaced out a little bit. It's very much the start, and the top 7 in front of him are very close together. And with his pace, you would expect he's going to be able to march even more forward.
Cruz Peixoto was a little bit too deep into T10, and he might be open to Pereira or Zachariah directly behind. He does get dived in there a little bit, and Pereira does make his way passing up into 9th position, so the podium sitter from Valkenburg's race 2 is dropping backwards a little bit here at Sonoma around the sprint circuit. Of course, round number 2 of the ACL Challenge. Valentini now setting his sights on Chorus, who's a little bit too wide, coming up through T1 up the hill into 2, and I think there might be a move potentially 3 and 3A. It's bold if you want to make a move down there, but we've seen that Valentini loves to make a move down into 7. I think that's where he's going to try it. Could be down into 4, but I'm not so sure about that. The chute does normally open up a great overtaking opportunity into that 7th corner.
Sometimes you just have to catch your opponent off guard, and Valentini has got the pace to be able to do so. Luca Becker on the defensive from Zachariah and Forte just behind as he tries to make his way towards the top 10. And he did showcase some good pace in race 2 as well, managed P5, so he's certainly as well another driver who is capable of marching his way towards the front of the grid. And again, still everyone locked in this battle. It just makes it very, very close indeed. And of course, with the pressure and the high stakes of this competition, things can happen. And of course, all it takes is a marginal mistake for things to go drastically wrong, especially when there's so many cars around you.
And I will say, I know obviously a lot of people would be like, well, surely we'd be looking at Welter as being the favourite for this race. He's leading by 3 seconds right now. But the last time was a 16.9, and we know that Valentini can do 15s, can do 16s consistently, low 16s consistently, which means that that gap would come down a second lap. If he can get his way up in the 2nd position, then I think the advantage swings. It's more about clearing this group. He's got past Chorus now. It's Mertz, it's Gra, it's Huberty, Jans, Alves. Those are the ones that really are going to decide this as to whether Valentini wins or whether Welter wins. And also Welter's got to soak up all that pressure late on. Keep eyes forward. Here's Prevost making it 3 wide, coming down towards T4. He's trying to make it stick. It's going to be a big move. That's a super send. 12th position. He's not made it too easy for himself as he's trying to wire up a position on Carmen Forte as well down into 7.
Yeah, he is just trying. He's being very aggressive. Oh, that's Peugeot getting it all sorts of wrong through there, having to dip down. Went for a bit of a jump. Luckily, Zachariah and Brumaire just behind didn't hit him. That could have been a very sticky situation. But Prevost, yeah, certainly elbows out. He's seen the success from Valentini just to be able to cut his way through. He wants a piece of the action. He's, well, quicker than Valentini, proved it in race 1. He wants to be up there, wants to get in on the charge, and well, he's certainly making light work. Loves this move in towards the penultimate corner, late on the brakes, gets it stopped just about, and is able to park it. And it is one of those things, as a driver, you know where you're quick compared to other people, and he's exploiting that and using it as to advantage pretty much every lap now.
Yeah, nearly inside the top 10, got Luca Becker to clear. But Becker, the thing is that there are a couple of drivers that you've kind of risen up through the pack with, and Luca Becker will be one of those. Gras run a little bit wide, Valentini gets an absolute freebie into T2, so he's up into 6th place now. Mertz is next, who is literally right ahead in that very distinctive green and pink car. I kind of feel there might be, not close enough to 7A. It might need to come down into T11, into that final hairpin to be a big lunge from Valentini to get through. I don't know if he's going to get a freebie on Mertz as he did on Gras.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, but he is certainly very close, and of course is late on the brakes. Just has to stay close. That's the crucial thing. Keep it nice and tidy through the sweepers, and then be able to just absolutely send one under brakes. And of course, Huberty is right there as well. He can maybe get to in just a matter of corners. A lot more committed into that right-hander quite quick, and he's going to hyper move. Is he? We'll see. In towards this penultimate corner. Thought about it, and he's a lot closer. Had to swerve out the way. Just goes to show he was committed under brakes. Wanted to go for it, but he's got to be careful, because if Grant nicks one up the inside, that's going to be lost progress. He wants to be going forwards, not backwards.
Yeah, it was because Mertz sort of like held off sort of half-heartedly defensively in the middle of the road, and it was kind of a bit of a confusion as to which way to go. By the way, the car in the pit lane was De Cruz Peixoto, who's obviously coming through to serve, well, he's now going to have to come back through to serve a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. He was coming through to serve a damage repair. This is a close one from Valentini, coming up into 3, rising up the hill. Way too much curb being used there from Dylan Mertz, and this is the over-under that surely will work the way from Valentini down the hill towards T4. He's not alongside though, way too deep for Mertz, and is it going to be the big send into 7? Defended though in the middle of the road is Dylan Mertz. Is there going to be the up and under from Valentini? Oh my goodness, Mertz is going to make a move on Huberty, and then Valentini trying to get through, and as he did that, he just unloaded Huberty. He managed to get out of the throttle, and he has gone backwards.
Yeah, indeed so, and that is such a shame for Valentini. Wrong place, wrong time. Tried to go for the move on Mertz, and that just unfortunately sent him backwards just a little bit. He's still there, still in the mix, but again, just that backwards. He wants to be going backwards, not forwards, but he wants to be going forwards, not backwards, sorry. Got that a little bit backwards. In towards the penultimate corner. He's going to have a little look, but you can see Cora is going to send one to the inside. Bit of contact. Valentini is going to say thank you very much. Get the up and under, potentially on the pair of them as he goes through in towards the final corner of turn 12. He's made that lost time back up, but still, that is half a lap of progress he did not want to lose.
Yeah, he could ill afford to lose if he wants to take the victory. Whilst it comes to his points, I think on points he's pretty much... Oh, see you, Huberty. He's gone for a bit of a slide there into turn 2. That is so easy to do as you're rising up. The weight shifts so much in the car. Becker and Chorus come through. Pereira also doing so. I think Prevost might be quite tight to getting a move done into T3 in the background. You can see some side-by-side as they head up towards 3 and 3A, and Prevost will take the advantage and up inside the top 10. He now goes. But for Valentini, as that was very, very wide there from Becker, Chorus might send this coming down into 7. Big dive. Surely he's not going to be alongside enough to kick of oversteer off the corner. The two of them went side by side towards the sweepers. The advantage is to Luca Becker.
Manages to hang on for the time being, but Chorus certainly is eyeing up. The move has showed that he wants to find a way through no matter the cause, no matter the means. And well, he's no stranger to just sending one to the inside, trying to do the old Prevost, but unfortunately couldn't quite get it stopped. He might be able to eye up another go, but it seems that Luca Becker has got the edge over him. This is Arthur Gra just in front of Valentini, who's trying to make amends. He's on the fringes of a top 5, which is still a really good result considering he started, second last in this race, and he's still got half of it to go. Looking to the inside of T12, just showing his nose in, trying to fill the mirror and play that psychological game. Inspired
Yorkshire racing here for Arthur Grutt. That's very much in the north of England, so I'm sure there'll be some fans of that to a certain degree, but either way, ahead of that, Mertz was trying to make a move on Jeff Jans going into turn 2 as they rise their way up through 3 and 3A. Two of them very, very close to two of these, very close to Valentini. There's the up and under. That's what we were speaking on. Same has happened directly ahead. Mertz making the move on Jans, and he has absolutely sent it into T4. So Mertz does make the move, Valentini doesn't. And Valentini is coming under pressure now from Luca Becker, who is a driver who is very fast in this race. There's the move to the inside from Valentini. Side by side off the corner, the advantage to Valentini. Luca Becker might slot his way through as well as we head into the sweepers. He's just going to try and just follow the gap through, use Valentini as sort of the battering ram to get through this pack. Knows he's slightly quicker, slightly wide from Jans. That's going to open the door potentially for Mertz, who's going to look to the outside, quickly becomes the inside, can claim the corner very easily. And of course now Valentini's right onto the back of these two, coming towards the crucial penultimate corner where he can absolutely send one under brakes to the left-hand side. Bit of contact nearly sent Jans into the pit lane, has sent him in deep, he's sent him spun round. Valentini up into P5. I don't know how I feel about that one. I don't know how I feel about it. Valentini to the outside of Mertz now, so he's now up into third position. I've got to say, as they'll race their way side by side through up towards 2 rather. Valentini with the inside line, Mertz throwing it in, maybe a little bit too deep. The rear's never going to grip on that one, right in the pathway of Becker. Indeed so, and luckily I think Becker managed to just about get out of the throttle a little bit as Leia gets a drive through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. That is not the first time we've seen that one. It's probably not going to be the last, but Valentini, it's sceptical, it must be said. Maybe he was squeezed a little bit, maybe, I don't know, but either way it was not the cleanest of moves at all. Here's Prevost trying to make it 3 abreast once more and just about manages to get it stopped. You can see Cora's going to go the upper and under once more. That seems to be the theme around here, just being able to say, okay, you can have the corner, I'm going to come right back underneath. Yes, indeed. Oh, that was a little bit of a brush though, and Chorus just trying to hang on, but he's gone in too deep, and once again, you know it, like you said before, it's the meta of the day. The up and under to Prevost, who's now got himself up into 6th position. Gra is also waiting for a moment to pounce. It's going to have to be a defensive move from Nicholas Chorus coming down into the final real corner at 11. He's left in the middle of the road, and Gra is being dived by Jans, who's got straight down the inside. It might open the door for Pereira to come through, maybe from Carmen Forte up towards the first couple of corners. I'll always say that it is reminiscent of a karting race, and it's something they're going to have to get used to, so they might as well practice it now, but they are so bumper to bumper that it's so close. One mistake and everyone can try and get away through. You can see Pereira trying to go the up and under on pretty much everyone. All once more, again, the undulation, I think, getting the better of people. Yeah, a little bit too close through 2, and like I say, any little tap in the second corner because you're coming up and over the crest. You're just going to go for a spin, and Pereira being cost there, and it's the same at turn 3, and that's exactly what he could ill afford. Into the rear end there was Bremeier, and Peters also comes through, who then actually makes a move himself straight down the inside into 12th position. Goes Peters, who had issues at the start of the first race. We're going to have a 3-wide dive. That is a big send from Pereira. I mean, I respect the game, but that was a proper send.
Yeah, well, he wasn't hesitant at all, and I guess that is the best thing to do, is to just not be hesitant, to absolutely go for it. Bit of argy-bargy, bit of scrapes, but no harm done at all, and Pereira has to make those moves. He, again, as you were saying, he can't afford to be, messing up and falling a little bit backwards. He's got pace to move forward, and certainly needs to take any opportunity he can. Peters looking very spicy in towards turn 11, late under brakes, I think. Pereira's seen him coming, has to concede, but once again, no sense. Certainly getting the better of a couple of people.
These two are not going to last long if they keep driving like this. That was another big send from Benjamin Peters. Obviously, game recognised game on the big send between these two, and I guarantee that Pereira, the next opportunity, will send one in from about 3.5 kilometres back if he's close enough. He's very close on the exit at 2, but too much of a kick of oversteer, and Bremeier looking on the race down towards turn 3 as they rise up and over the crest. Peters, oh, who was that in the barrier? Who was that in the barrier? Was that Jans? It was Jeff Jans. Oh my goodness.
Unfortunate once more, and Motorsport has taken yet another victim, and it is so unfortunate. We've had the likes of Loic and of course Goncalves getting disqualified in race 1, and now it's Grass' turn to fall victim, and all eyes really now on Tom Valentini. 9.5 seconds to Velter in front, 6 minutes left to go in this race. It's going to be a tough ask, but I think if there's anyone that can do it, it is him. But then again, he's got to catch, he's got to get through, and I don't think Velter's going to give up that place easy either.
I'm going to be completely honest here. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that gap will come down, as we'll see the side-by-side for the podium. Alves with Luca Becker straight down the inside. Alves is going to hang on for now, and Mertz in that distinctive green and pink car is also closing in. And guess who he's dragging? Of course, it's Thibaut Prevost. The reason why I don't think anything can happen is because Gilles Welter is looking plenty fast enough. He's doing low 17s, which is around a second slower than Valentini, but there is not enough time left in this race. There is only going to be about 5 laps to go. Valentini closing a second a lap. He's going to come down 4 seconds short. So if there is no mistakes from Welter, I think this might be his win. Big moment there. Oh my goodness. Thibaut Prevost over the crest at 3A. He is lucky to keep that one on the road. There's a disqualification for ignoring a drive-through penalty for Daniel Lyer.
Yeah, here comes Luca Becker to the inside of 7, gets it stopped and up into P3. Now a 4-car train for the podium, could even be 5 or 6. And again, unfortunate for Daniel Lyer, and he just come into the pit lane. I'm not entirely sure how that's happened, but yeah, another disqualification tonight, and we can see Prevost on the back of Mertz. Look at that menacing Mercedes in the rearview mirror, getting very close to the rear end of Mertz as they go through, and he's going to do the up and under, push him a little bit wide, claim the inside for T11. Mertz really hasn't got much to say to this one, because Prevost is always going to be committed. Is he going to make it 2? He's got to get it stopped nearly into the side of Alves, and that is always going to be sketchy, and his left foot will certainly be feeling a bit of a cramp.
Yes, indeed. That was a big send again from Prevost, who's had a couple of moments here. Could there be back-to-back podiums for Valentini and for Prevost? Well, I don't think there's going to be back-to-back victories for Prevost. I think there's going to be, again, the 4 races shared between the same 2 drivers. Velter is super in control, but at the moment there from Mertz, and of course Nicholas Kouros is going to be right there to pounce. 3 and 3A ticked off once again. 4 minutes left to go in this race. Velter leading from Valentini, from Becker, from Alves, from Prevost. Mertz, Kouros, Forte, Zachariah and Huberty, your top 10. Whether that'll be your top 10 in a few moments' time, because I think Kouros, there's going to be a big send rather from Prevost, who absolutely throws it down the inside of Luca Becker to get himself up into 4th.
Yeah, he's very, very elbows out. Is fighting for it, and now, both Prevost and Valentini have cut their way through this field in fantastic fashion, and Luca Becker has got the pressure on him in order to maybe get that place back, or to just to keep him honest. But a big old train behind Thibaut Prevost, as that. Well, I mean, he should be okay. He knows how hard they're going to fight. You can see Kouros looking to the inside on Mertz. He's going to get it stopped, just about. Nice. Keep it side by side. Yeah, that's impressive. Mertz, though, was trying to go for the up and under, saw that, of course, Kouros had to get it stopped, so was able to keep it on the outside. Great respect shown between both drivers. Mertz now has the inside. Potentially, it's a bit of a nose in. Kouros around the outside. That's going to be quite sketchy. To the Mertz using the fully set of the track. Contact and up the hill. We were saying a little bit earlier on how sensitive these cars can be under severe weight transfer, and unfortunately for Mertz, who's driving a fantastic race up until this point, he's going to tumble down.
I think that might have been Mertz's mistake, if I'm being brutally honest. So I think that's all's fair, really. He was kind of diving in, drifted off of the racing line, the ideal line, going through turn 2, and it obviously straight into the side there. But that happens, fair enough. But yeah, Mertz is the one that pays the price. He dropped outside of the top 10.
Yeah, mistakes can... it was the tiniest mistake as well. It was just going side by side, just drifted into the side of Chorus, and it was just a tap. But in that section of the circuit, as you're saying, with the undulation, the weight transfer, how sensitive these cars can be, all it takes is a tap for you to go around. Looking at Tom Valentini, the gap has come down, Lewis. Just under 7 seconds now. But with only now this is going to be, I think, 2 laps left to go. It's just looking increasingly unlikely. It's going to be a mistake from Velter, but he's got the gap. Of course, can't be complacent at all, but he's got the gap. He doesn't need to push by any means.
Like I said, it's coming down around a second a lap. Velter on the previous lap did a 17.3. Valentini did a 16.4. Team Ebravo did a 16.0. To show you some of the pace of those that are catching. But critically, Gilles Welter pulled out the big gap early on, and whilst everyone was kind of tripping up over themselves behind, it needed to be a perfect drive, like carving a hot knife through butter, to get them up into second position before they could actually really close down on this driver. But Gilles Welter had already built up a lot of the gap, and that's kind of one of those things. If you can't get the moves done in one go, then you have to try again and try again and try again. All of those extra attempts is losing time, and Welter's eating it up as we look back to this battle as Chorus keeps Fabio Alves at bay, coming through 7. Zachariah is also right there.
These guys have been going at it pretty much for the entire race. Zachariah nearly sending Alves sideways, but Chorus and Forte both have been aggressive, both have punched their way towards the front, and similar to Velter, they've got to capitalise on any opportunity they possibly can. In terms of these guys, it's making the moves. In terms of Velter, it's avoiding the moves and staying himself, keeping himself in front. Looking to the inside goes Zachariah. Alves going to see him coming both late under brakes. That has been the prime overtaken opportunity. Once again, a bit of argy-bargy, bit of contact, nothing major, as Alves tries to get the up and under, but Zachariah has got a good enough launch going through turn 12 to solidify that move, coming on to what will be the last lap for these guys, and it's always going to come down to the way these guys have been at it from pretty much start to finish.
Yeah, like I say, the last couple of laps for these drivers are all a little bit too deep there, just a little couple of positions ahead. That'll be Forte, who's just running a touch deep. For a lot of these drivers, I'm going to say most of them are probably pretty safe on the points, but still, you never know for certain, and sometimes you kind of think, well, actually, maybe I might be quite close to the cusp, and maybe I should just send this one down the inside to try and gain a couple extra ones.
Every little helps. You might as well go for it, especially when you've been battling so much. Chorus on the back of Forte, going to try again, squeeze him to the inside and go for the up and under. And has he got that move stuck? He's going to try it through the sweepers, and then side by side. He's not something we've seen often. It seems the inside line is always dominant, but I think Chorus might be able to make this one stick. He's always aggressive, and it's forced Forte into submission there.
Yeah, super move from Chorus, but I think, by the way, we have to go up the order, because coming out of the final corner, Gilles Welter, like he said, he had built himself a great gap, and Welter becomes the 3rd different winner over the 4 races that we've had, and that was a super drive, soaking up the pressure. Valentini, what a drive, by the way, from 20, I think it was 25th on the grid. It was the second last position we had, all the way up to 2nd. Luca Becker on the podium again. Prevost only good enough for 4th from the back of the grid after the victory earlier on in the day. What a super performance from those lot to rise their way up, put on some great moves. This battle, by the way, has been enthralling. Chorus, Zachariah, Alves, Huberty, Peters and Pereira all very, very close across the line. Here's Theo across the line just ahead of Gry, who had a couple of issues throughout the day. But what a drive from Welter. Just soaked up that pressure. Maybe didn't have the speed, but it didn't matter. Just drove beautiful lines.
It's easy to talk about Valentini, Becker and Prevost in this situation of their drive from the back of the grid just to storm their way to the front. But, Velter, he won the race. He started at the front. He kept the lead. It's so easy to succumb to that pressure because Valentini, Becker, Prevost are all very quick drivers in their own right. They've proved it. And as maybe a potentially slower driver, Velter could very easily fall to that pressure, but he didn't. He stayed consistent. His best lap only 4/10 slower than Valentini. So a fantastic effort from the race winner, and very well deserved indeed. But yeah, no discredit to Valentini, Becker and Prevost, because from the back of the grid to be able to carve your way through with the amount of incidents that have happened today, yeah, they've kept their nose clean and well deserved top 4 for sure.
Yes, indeed. You can see your results here. Of course, Valter winning, Valentini and Becker behind, Prevost, Chorus, Zachariah Alves, Huberty, Peters and Pereira the top 10. Couple of notable exceptions on the list. Of course, we never saw Loic really on the grid. Will appear here in 25th position courtesy of a couple of issues for others, but had a game crash at the very start of the event. Big shame. Laya did the fastest lap of the race but received a DQ for not serving a penalty. Krista getting a DQ for breaching incident points. But I mean, it was a great race and another great victory, and hopefully we'll see some of these drivers back out again at the karting track in a few weeks' time. But anyway, whilst we're here, Zach, very quickly, what are your first and final thoughts of, for one, the ACL Challenge as a whole over the 2 rounds that we've had here in the online competition, but also of Sonoma anyway?
I've loved it. Well, Sonoma especially, I'm sure you're very much aware, Lewis. I had no clue where this was. No, absolutely not. Not a clue. But no, it did not disappoint by any means, especially in these cars. It did lend itself well, and the ACL Challenge Series as a whole has really impressed me. You know, race ones have proved to be fantastic, and then of course flipping the grid on its head for race 2 again has provided just the action and excitement that we always want. And you know, keeping it short and snappy, 20-minute races a piece, you know, keeps the action lively. And well, I'm sure you'll agree in that it's just been excitement and drama all the way through.
Yes, indeed. Well, in a couple of weeks' time, on the 9th and 10th of July, the 32 qualifiers from the online events here that we've had, round 1 and round 2 in the ACL Challenge, will head to the Mondercange karting circuit, where they'll be racing on simulators on site to battle their way to the actual final, the ACL karting circuit. That's going to be a lot of fun, but either way, from ourselves on the online side of things, we've had an awful lot of fun. From myself, Lewis McLeod, from Zach Sweeney alongside. We hope to see you again around soon. You can obviously follow us on all sorts of social media to see exactly what's going to be coming up next. But until the next time we speak, have a very warm goodbye.
RaceRoom, Ihre Partner für professionelle Racing-Simulatoren. Für zu kaufen oder für zu lohnen. Kommt sie einfach testen. Bei RaceRoom vom 1. April und zum Mondercange auf der ACL Kartingspiste.